Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome back. I have a channeling for you today from Arthur MacAden, who we know as Arthur Pendragon, who most of our King Arthur legends are based on. Um, so I'm going to get on with it, and then we will go through a few of the terms he used just so people can understand what he's trying to say. It's a short one today. Arthur wishes to speak. Sabres rattle in the winds of change. Salahadin is risen. Visions tell of the way forward. Jesus tells us to rise only when we are sure of the path. Sebastian comes to the place of the battle, and so it is. Right. So there's lots of things in there. I'm going to put my reading glasses on that I didn't have many points of reference for in there. So obviously, Arthur says that his first line is sabers rattle in the winds of change. So obviously, a saber is a curved sword. It's particularly used by the Hussars, cavalry officers, but also we refer to that sort of curved sword, a saber, as being used by, the Ottoman Empire, the Muslim kind of uh, army in the medieval times, early medieval times. Then, interestingly, he says Salahuddin is risen. Now, I know about Salahuddin. It's one of the few things I didn't have to look up. So, Salahuddin was a military leader, a general that rose from quite humble beginnings to lead an army in the Crusades, and then went on to rule for many years. It was about in the 1130s, I think, late 1130s, so 12th century. Um, and he was known for his piousness. He wasn't fond of material things. He was a Sunni Muslim, and it was said that when he died, he had given so much of his money away that his family had to raise money for his funeral. He literally had kept nothing. He's also a great sort of negotiator, deal maker. He's known for being merciful and allowing people to kind of walk away if it wasn't necessary to kill them. Probably our most recent cultural reference for Salah is probably from the film Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom about Queen Sabia in Jerusalem when France ruled Jerusalem, and the battle for Jerusalem against Salah. So Arthur says Salah is risen. Now, from this, I get that he is saying there is going to be a new, strong, even-handed alliance in the Middle East amongst Muslim nations, because this is what Saladin was known for, and being very even-handed and having lots of allies, even who weren't necessarily of the same religion. So that's an interesting thing that he said, that there's almost like something has been triggered that's going to cause Middle Eastern countries to come together, potentially across religious divides. Now, I'm not necessarily saying whether that's going to be between Islamic countries or Christian countries, or Christians within those Islamic countries, or you know the other country we can't mention in the Middle East because otherwise our videos get taken down. But certainly Salahuddin was a Sunni Muslim, so whether or not he's talking about Arthur is talking about an alliance between Muslim countries that aren't necessarily of the same denomination of Islam, I'm not sure. Um, then he says visions tell the way forward. Well, we're all having those, aren't we, at the moment? Loads of them, loads of dreams, loads of synchronicities. But then he says, Jesus tells us to rise only when we are sure of the path. Now, this was a bit odd because obviously that's the opposite of what is we're told Jesus taught in the Bible, right? Because I think Jesus specifically said, rise without certainty, just do the best thing, do the kindest thing without knowing how it's going to work out. And Arthur says completely the opposite here. He says Jesus tells us to rise when we are sure of the path. Now, the only thing I'm not very au fait with the Bible, only from school level and reading the Old Testament when I was very young. So the only thing I could find that was anything like what Arthur was saying was from the book of Psalms, 119, 105, whatever. I don't even know what those references mean. And it says, your word is a lamp to my feet, a light to my path. So, and it says, Jesus tells us to rise only when we are sure of the path. And so your word is a lamp to my feet, a light to my path. So we've had lots of messages and visions recently about just taking the first step on your journey. Don't worry about the end outcome. Just take that step that is illuminated for you. And if you keep taking that individual step as it appears before you, then you will find yourself at your destination effectively. So, and that is kind of in keeping with Jesus's teaching. So is it sort of fits with what Arthur is saying. Jesus tells us to rise only when we are sure of the path. Perhaps he's talking about waiting for some sort of sign. Certainly, a lot of the things that have been coming up recently in readings for me and visions and signs from other worlds has been the image of the hawk or the falcon. And that very much is that imagery of, the hovering hawk, the soaring hawk, just taking it easy, using the air, the ether to bear its weight, and then not actually diving, not actually striking until you're pretty much sure of your intended target. That's how hawks and falcons hunt of all kinds. And so I get that kind of vibe with this, where he says Jesus says not to rise until we are sure of the path. It's almost like hold your horses a little while longer, just observe and wait and see if that illuminated step presents itself to you. And then that's when it's time to go, when your gut tells you this is when I need to move. And that's going to, I think, be individual for everybody, depending on what your path is and where you are in the world. And then he says, Sebastian comes to the place of the battle. Now, this was really interesting because the only person that sprang to mind for me was Saint Sebastian. And this also has a kind of Christian slant on it, and lots of Jesus type analogies as well, because Saint Sebastian was a Roman officer who was executed in, let me get this right, I've written it down, AD 288. So very early on, less than 300 years after the birth of Christ, so very early Christianity. And he was executed for being a secret Christian in the Roman army. Um, and he was tied to a post and shot with arrows. And there's loads of symbolism of the crucifixion there, isn't there? But he survived and he was saved by women who cut him down. And then he went and challenged, I believe, he challenged the emperor. He confronted the emperor and was beaten to death for his troubles. Um, so Saint Sebastian is not only a symbol of endurance and courage and faith, which is really pertinent right now, but he also held his belief steadfast under persecution. And so that's a really interesting parallel to what's happening now in the US, isn't it? Um, but what's also really interesting, because I had no knowledge of this, I thought, oh, saints have feast days, right? Let's look when Saint Sebastian's feast day is. It's the 20th of January. And the date of recording and of the message is the 20th of January. What's the chances of that? Anyway, but what I thought was really interesting is that he says Sebastian comes to the place of the battle. Now, the place of the battle right at the moment primarily is the US. That's where all the attention, the battles that are going on that are getting worldwide attention are going on. And Arthur says Sebastian comes to the battle. And what I thought was really interesting is Sebastian was a covert Christian. He was in the Roman army and he had concealed his faith. So this says to me that there is potentially somebody in the administration in America who is covert, who is undercover, who harbors honest beliefs, true faith, maybe Arthur has referenced Jesus, so the sort of true teachings of Jesus, which when I think of the true teaching of Jesus, we can go into all sorts of things that he said, but really, essentially, he taught love, didn't he? It was love, kindness, loving your neighbor. It was love. Be loving across the board. And so is Arthur saying that there's somebody in the administration in the US or who's going to rise in the US who has appeared to be part of the machine, but actually is a person of love, and is now going to step forward because he says comes to the place of the battle. So is this somebody we associate with appearing to be of the administration or of the kind of political sphere in the US who is going to reveal themselves as having better intentions? And interestingly, Sebastian was saved by women. And we've had before in readings that women were coming up loads, that potentially the women were going to take down the administration. Now, whether or not that was the victims of, JE, or whether that was women within the administration itself, Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned, didn't she? So is this person going to step forward and then the women back them up? And that allows some sort of change to happen. I don't know. But it's very interesting that that's today. His feast day is today. So today, someone steps forward to the place of the battle who is has been covert, but is coming from a place of true intentions and has the endurance, courage, and faith and the steadfast belief in good to see this through, even under persecution, which I thought was quite pertinent. So let's see what happens. We could let me just check the time because I've got to go out somewhere. Right, we've got quick time to just ask the cards quickly. Oh, let me show you the cards. They look shiny, pretty. They love shiny things. Such a magpie. Right. These are the Wise Earth. Oh, you can't see. Wise Earth Medicine Tarot. There you go. By Leilania Simone. They're lovely. So let's Arthur ask Arthur if he wants to add any more to this or give us any guidance with regards to this message. There's a few sticking out. We've got the world, looking at things from a different. So we've got the world, the hanged man or the equivalent of that, the devil, and the three of fire. Arthur's got an eagle. Look, is that not very American? I think he is talking about America. So what we've got come out, I will show you, try with this background. We've got the world, which is endings, completion, integration, and wholeness, which is what we need, isn't it? People coming together, and the end of cycles, the samsara, the karmic wheel, karma coming round, the hanged one. Now this says on here, pause, surrender, and sacrifice. So that really fits with our Saint Sebastian element of our message, doesn't it? He was persecuted and stuck to his faith. But maybe we'll know his face. But it's also looking at things from a different point of view. I get very much from that, seeing the positive in the situation, even if you're looking around and, there's destruction everywhere. There is space being made to allow for something good to come in. So don't mourn what's gone too much. Move on from where we are once this is all sorted out. Then we've got the devil, which is poppies in this. That makes me think of California. California is Saint Sebastian, Gavin Newsom, in this message. I don't know. It's someone whose face we know. I said face, didn't we? We know his face. We think he's part of the machine, but he's true of heart. I don't know. I don't know that much about American politics. I don't know much of his history, but there's certainly a California reference there, isn't there? And that's who I associate with California. But equally, that's the devil card. So that's, indulgence, in addiction, impulse, trying to break away from negative cycles, but sort of being stuck in a sort of chained in a way to them, but breaking free or trying to break free of toxic cycles of behavior, of interestingly narcissists as well. Interesting point there. I'm saying nothing. And the last card is the Three of Fire. So to me, that's the Three of Wands. And look, bald eagle. And that is expansion, progress, and accomplishment. So there's an ending here, but not to mourn it. There's integration and wholeness here. There is breaking away from toxic behavior here. And there is progress, which I think is, and we've got that hawk image again, though, haven't we? That falcon, that raptor, not acting until it's time, not going blundering in. There's a strong element of that. And then the underlying card in all this, the underlying energy, is the six of wands. That's victory. That's triumph. That's achievement. What is that there? I don't know what plant that is. I might just look that up in case that's important in the book because I don't actually recognize what that plant is. So let's, all these things are always important. Does it tell you? No, I'm looking up the wrong thing. I'm looking up the three. Bear with me, brain not in gear. Right, the six of fire, does it say it's laurel? Now that's interesting indeed, because what were Romans given when they won? They were giving wreaths of laurel. There's another Roman reference there. Now, didn't Trump say yesterday something in the Oval Office about Italy and America have been friends since the time of the Romans and completely showed he had no idea about American history? But that's interesting, isn't it? So we've got Saint Sebastian, who was a Roman officer. There's something here about that Italian attempts at that Italian alliance. Maybe we should watch what what's her name? Giorgia Meloni. Is it Giorgia Meloni? President Meloni does in Italy. Maybe she's important in this. But that is victory, and that's Roman victory. The emperors wore laurel leaves. That's very interesting. Yeah, they were woven into crowns, a sign of success and victory. So let's just see. So that's the cards we've got. It'd be interesting to, I know many of you who watch me have read cards as well. So I'd be really interested to hear your take on the cards we've got today. And interestingly, underneath that underlying, sometimes the next card in the underlying is also wants to be read and is also pertinent. And it's the ace of wind, which I think in this deck is the ace of cups, I think. Could be the, yeah, it is. Creativity, love, and origin. And look, a nest and eggs, that's potential. That's something new hatching. That's like the San Sebastian representation of holding on to what you believe in, even under persecution, and protecting your integrity and your beliefs and your heart and your love and your good intentions, because you're going to need to hatch them after. You'll be needed after. But that's a nice message to end on, isn't it? So I'd love to know your thoughts on Arthur's latest message and the cards we got from it. And I'll see you again soon.